Radioactive atoms contain energy that pours out spontaneously as energetic subatomic particles or electromagnetic waves. The emissions are called radiation. Humans are exposed to radiation every day. Man has always been exposed to natural radiation arising from the Earth as well as from outside the Earth. Some of this comes from materials on Earth. This is partially why the inside of the Earth is warm. Radon, a radioactive noble gas in the air we breathe, cosmic rays, or the sun, are some other sources of radiation humans are daily exposed to. On average, an American receives a radiation dose of about 6.2 millisieverts each year. This is child's play when compared to the places which we are going to see today. These places fell victim to nuclear disaster, be it from nuclear power plant accidents or nuclear weapons. Hi and welcome to Daily Tops. Today we are going to see the 5 of the most radioactive places on planet Earth. Number 5. The Siberian Chemical Combine. The Siberian Chemical Combine is a nuclear production facility in Seversk, Russia. The Siberian Chemical Combine played an important role in the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons program. Tomsk 7 was the name given to Seversk, a secret city in Russia during the Cold War. It housed several nuclear facilities for large-scale production of plutonium and highly enriched uranium for nuclear fuel and nuclear warheads. The plant also had a reprocessing unit to reprocess the spent fuel. The closed city was home to about 100,000 workers and their families. On April 6, 1993, one of the worst accidents in the history of Russian nuclear industry occurred here, when a tank exploded due to formation of red oil, while nitric acid was being added to a plutonium-uranium mixture. The explosion released a cloud of radioactive gas containing nearly 9 kilograms of uranium and 500 grams of plutonium into the atmosphere. The radiation plume covered a total area of 120 square kilometers, where increased levels of radioactivity could be detected. The explosion had a force of approximately 100 kilograms of TNT. About 177,000 people were exposed to high levels of radiation. The radiation even today is 100 times more than background radiation. All of its reactors were shut down after an agreement between USA and Russia in 2008. Number 4. Hanford Site. Established in 1943 as part of the Manhattan Project in Hanford, south-central Washington. The site was home to the B reactor, the first full-scale plutonium production reactor in the world. This site manufactured the plutonium used in the first nuclear bomb tested at Trinity Site. Hanford Site also manufactured the atomic bomb, Fat Man, detonated over Nagasaki, Japan. During the Cold War, the site was expanded to include 9 nuclear reactors and 5 large plutonium processing complexes. This site produced plutonium for most of more than 60,000 weapons built for the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Hanford produced 74 tons of plutonium, roughly 2/3 of the U.S.'s stockpile. Today, Hanford holds 56 million gallons of radioactive waste stored underground. The waste leaks into the soil and groundwater because many tanks have never been replaced. Around Hanford, people report unusually high rates of thyroid disorders, cancer, and handicaps because of river pollution. In particular, Native American communities who rely on the river and salmon fishing to support their cultural way of life have been affected. Over its years of operation, Hanford Site became the most radioactively contaminated place in America. Today the site is undergoing a massive cleanup program and most of the old facilities have been dismantled and demolished in the process, but the historic B reactor is still standing and can be visited. Number 3. The Polygon. You may not have heard about this one, but Polygon is one of the most radioactive places on planet Earth. Polygon, also known as Semipalatinsk, is located on the steppe in northeast Kazakhstan. Polygon was the major testing ground for Soviet Union's nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union conducted 456 nuclear tests at Polygon from 1949 until 1989 without considering its effect on the local people or environment. Studies conducted at Cambridge took blood samples from 40 different families who lived in a district of Kazakhstan that were directly exposed at high levels to fallout from the Soviet bomb tests. These studies concluded that individuals who had been exposed to the fallout between 1949 and 1956 had an approximate 80% increase of mutations in the mini-satellite regions of their DNA. The full impact of radiation exposure was hidden for many years by Soviet authorities. The consensus of health studies conducted at the site since it was closed is that radioactive fallout from nuclear testing had a direct impact on the health of about 200,000 residents. Specifically, scientists have linked higher rates of different types of cancer. The full impact of radiation exposure was hidden by the Soviet government. In 1991, this data was released to public. It is estimated that about 1.5 million people were affected over the time. After its closure, Polygon became one of the most researched atomic testing sites in the world. Much has been done since 1991 to reduce and research the dangers of radiation. It is the only atomic test site is now open to tourism. Visiting is sure to expand your views on nuclear warfare, the dangers of radiation, and the history of the Cold War. Number 2. Chernobyl. I guess most of you watching the video are aware about one of the most famous and worst nuclear power plant tragedies in the world. If you don't, pay close attention. The accident occurred near the city of Pripyat in the north of the Ukrainian SSR in the Soviet Union. The incident occurred on the 26th of April 1986 at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The event occurred during a late-night test at the plant that was meant to simulate a station power failure. It was a safety test on the steam turbine of an RBMK-type nuclear reactor. As a part of experiment, the reactor power was decreased as planned to trigger the safety mechanisms, that is the diesel power generators, in case of a real power failure. The test program called for reducing the power to 7% and disabling the emergency core cooling system, a passive or active system of core cooling intended to provide water to the core in a loss of coolant accident. Doing this at low power caused lot of strain on the reactor and the core became unstable. They ignored the warnings given by the security systems and proceeded with the test. The test was completed, and the operators called for a shutdown. The problem began here. To initiate shutdown, control rods must be inserted into the reactor. Control rods will absorb the neutrons and bring the chain fission reaction to an end. A bigger problem was the design of the RBMK control rods, each of which had a graphite neutron moderator section attached to its end to boost reactor output. This is achieved by displacing water when the control rod section had been fully withdrawn from the reactor. Due to the design, injecting a control rod downward into the reactor displaced water, which is neutron absorber in the lower portion of the reactor, with graphite a neutron modulator. This increases the power, but with an unstable core, the pressure inside reactor increased, and caused 1,000-ton plate of the reactor to become partially detached, rupturing the fuel channels, cooling pipes, and jamming all the control rods. This caused water to flow into the reactor and steam was produced. Due to the steam pressure, first explosion occurred followed by another within 2 seconds. The cause of second explosion is unknown, and thus believed that it was caused by hydrogen, produced because of steam reacting with hot graphite. The second explosion released considerable airborne radioactive contamination for about 9 days that precipitated onto parts of the USSR and Western Europe. A zone area of approximately 2,600 square kilometers became Chernobyl exclusion zone. The USSR built the protective Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus by December 1986. It reduced the spread of radioactive contamination from the wreckage and protected it from weathering. This also provided protection for the workers at the undamaged reactors at Chernobyl, which were restarted in 1986. It is one of only 2 nuclear energy accidents rated at 7. This affected more than 500,000 people, and cost USSR about $68 billion. While Chernobyl today is indeed a kind of ghost town, there are various signs of life and recovery that say a lot about its past and its future. Animals from horses, to foxes, to dogs and many more have begun to flourish in this abandoned area with no humans to keep them in check. Today the place is being cleaned up and it is estimated to end in 2065. Number 1. Fukushima. Fukushima is the most radioactive place on Earth. The plant is in the town of Futaba in Fukushima Prefecture, Japan. In 1990, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, ranked the failure of the emergency electricity generators, and subsequent failure of the cooling systems of plants in seismically very active regions as one of the most likely risks. But TEPCO, that is Tokyo Electrical Power Company, didn't take any action. TEPCO was also warned about their seawall, which was insufficient to withstand a powerful tsunami, but did not increase the seawall height in response. On March 11, 2011, Japan witnessed an earthquake of magnitude 9.0, one of the worst earthquakes ever recorded in human history. Units 4, 5 and 6 had already been shut down due to maintenance. As soon as the tremors of the earthquake were detected, reactors 1, 2 and 3 were automatically shut down. Nuclear reactors take a long time to cool. As the power from transmission lines were interrupted due to the earthquake, the reactors were being cooled with power from emergency generators. The subsequent destructive tsunami with waves of up to 14 meters that overtopped the station, which had seawalls, disabled emergency generators required to cool the reactors. Due to this, the water level inside reactor 1, 2 and 3 dropped till the fuel rods were exposed to open air. As there was no water to cool the reactors, the temperatures became very high. This caused partial nuclear meltdown in plant 1, 2 and 3. The pressure became so high, to avoid Chernobyl-like disaster, steam was directly released from the reactor. Excessive hydrogen was produced in the reactor. This caused explosion in Site 1 followed by an explosion in Reactor 3. A suspected explosion in Unit 2, that may have damaged the primary containment vessel, and a possible uncovering of the spent fuel pools. The triple meltdown also caused concerns about contamination of food and water supplies, including the 2011 rice harvest, and the health effects of radiation on workers at the plant. A temporary exclusion zone of 20 kilometers, that is about 12 miles, was established around the plant. After the explosion, seawater was directly pumped into the core of reactors to prevent further meltdown. Radioactive water leaked from the storage units, contaminating the soil and water nearby. The leak was controlled and stored in a contained area. Contaminated water continues to accumulate at the plant, where it is filtered to remove most of the radioactive particles. More than 1 million tons of water has been stored in hundreds of tall steel tanks. The Japanese government has approved of releasing the treated water from plant to the Pacific Ocean beginning 2023. It is estimated that the process would take approximately 40 years to complete. Do you have any idea of visiting these places in one of your future trips? Comment your thoughts below. That's all for today's video. See you in another. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share this video and subscribe to the channel for more contents like this.